Hi everyone and welcome back. This is part 6 of Psychic Development. I am Wendy James. I'm a professional psychic and I'm very excited about this episode because this is one that I'm particularly passionate about. The topic for this episode is ethics, and ethics are a super big deal when you're developing psychically. You got to keep an eye on yourself, and you got to keep an eye on what your intentions are to use this incredible tool. I mean, it's an amazing thing to open up psychically. It's so awesome, man. Your world expands. You understand others better. You become so much more compassionate. You get in touch with yourself a lot, because that's kind of what it's all about. Is as you open up psychically, to be able to continue to open up psychically, you have to continue to get to know yourself. And in doing that, you are going to step into some very strange things that can happen. Actually, they probably will happen, each one in very small doses, as you continue to awaken psychically and really get confirmation that this is working. Sometimes you may find that others are coming to you and starting to ask you a lot more advice, or they're coming to you because they want you to tap into some things psychically. Maybe they know that you're studying it. Maybe they know that you're practicing it, or that you're watching it expand. And so as others come, if you are working, doing any kind of psychic work for other people, like reading for someone, or even just sitting and meditating on a topic for them, you have to be extremely careful. As we've talked about in other episodes, you got to mind your intentions. You have to do it for the highest good. But you also have to be extremely aware of whether or not your ego is starting to feed off of being accurate, off of having others fascinated by what you're capable of doing, by even getting kind of overly thrilled yourself on this development. Now, there is nothing wrong with being really excited when it really starts to open up, when maybe your mediumship and your ability to maybe communicate with spirit opens up, or when you're able to suddenly really read tarot cards, or anything. Your dreams start to become prophetic. You're processing things hugely, and my thought is that for you, as you begin to open up, you can also start to become a bit intoxicated in the truth of it all. It's okay to celebrate it. You're supposed to. I want you to. But you may find that you're suddenly feeling like you have something that others don't, or that maybe that you have the secret to something that other people's chattery minds aren't opening up for them. And maybe that's part of it, that you've unlocked something, but everybody has it. It's everybody else's possibility to do it. And it's really, really important that we keep extremely grounded, extremely humble, and from our heart genuinely hope that each and every living being can wake up as well. So to be very careful not to suddenly stand above anybody else with the thought that you maybe know more than them, or that you've got more figured out. What I'll say is, never does anybody ever have it figured out. I will say, if you're still in the form of flesh, if you've still got a body, then you ain't got it figured out. And that's okay. It's all right not to know everything. It's important to understand that even when you do see something, that is not a complete thing either. There's always expansion. There's always change off of everything. And to not get intoxicated as an all-knowing, or that you can save, fix, or repair everybody else. I will keep saying and always say, for the highest good. Do your work for the highest good. Do any psychic work for the highest good. Really, really do it. But I will tell you that it's also very easy to cheat. It's very easy to use prior knowledge and suddenly start to bend that into messages for somebody. Oh, it's so awful. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Know when you're thinking, know when you're using old information. Be extremely honest with yourself. You will have to face yourself in this process. You're going to have to face the side of you that wants to take the shortcut, or the side of you that is becoming that intoxicated with the thrill of it all. Or, I actually hate to say this out loud, but it is so true. I have met psychics in my life that research people before they sit down with them, and they say that it helps them, tap into the mystery of the person. Personally, to me, that's cheating. That's awful, and it's unethical. But a lot of people have a fear of being wrong. They want to have a wow factor. They want to not make mistakes, all right? They'll pad their information, or they'll try and think well before sitting and approaching a topic. They may try to really mull over statistics and outcomes, and then sit down and deliver messages or statements or things to others, or probably even worse yet, to themselves. That is statistics, it's logic, it's thought, and it is not intuitive process. And again, you go in and out, and you have to mind yourself. You got to keep an eye. You really got to be vigilant on your own self. It's you having a dialogue with you, and yes, it's going to drum up things. Starting to say, have people want to give you money to read for them, or to find out information. Like, what I do as a professional psychic is I do readings for people. But I work on a pay if pleased basis, and I do that for a damn reason. I do that so I keep doing my job. I keep doing that. I do that so that I don't get lazy in this process, that I keep my darn feet on the ground, so that I'm respecting others and making sure that I am going to do a good job. And if I don't do a good job, if I don't feel it, I'm not going to try and pull a rabbit out of a hat, or suddenly try and do some fancy pants bullshit to pull it off, to grab money out of someone's pocket. No, I'm going to admit that I don't see it, or I'm not feeling it. It's extremely important to admit when you're not sure of the answer, or to admit to yourself that you don't know for sure what you're seeing. Part of this lesson is the time where we're sitting and we're not sure. This isn't suddenly everything must be known and must be said. Really important. In the psychic world amongst professionals, there's this thing called the big 3 Ds: disease, divorce, and death. And, just because I've worked in hospice and I'm really comfortable with death and dying and this topic, does not mean for one moment that I can assume that any single person that I am communicating with is as comfortable with this topic as I am. And it is extremely important that if I see something that seems to be a crossing over of a soul, or this next doorway in a soul's journey, it's extremely important to really have a very strong dialogue within, to ask, why am I seeing this? How is this information for the highest good? And what is the motive? Especially if the person has asked me when somebody's going to die. I don't know why they're asking that, but it is really not the most ethical direction to go. I understand if a caretaker is drained and exhausted and wants to know, or they're watching someone go through pain and suffering, and they just want to know when that release will happen. But there are other people, the sweetest sometimes seeming folk, that want an inheritance or something completely creepy like that. So it's really important, especially while you're developing, and if you're still feeling out the tone of the motives and the tone of sometimes the topic, is very important. It's okay to say, I don't do the 3 Ds. I don't look into disease, divorce, and death. My feeling, especially when you're just budding and starting out, it's really important for you to be very mindful never to frighten anybody, never to try to shock them or shake up their world in any way. It's extremely important to never tell another person what they should or shouldn't do. I have to tell you, I have so many stories. I could just do an episode after episode of the incredible stories of what I've heard of some of the crazy things that psychics have chose to say to people, that have frightened them, that can traumatize them, that can cause people to lay awake at night staring at the ceiling, frightened. It's very, very important as you're developing psychically that you're doing it from a place that is a high vibrational, most loving direction, and that your intentions always are for the highest good, that you are not trying to thrill or chill people. You're not trying to become rich doing this. No, you are doing this out of love. You're doing this out of expanding yourself and enjoying dancing within that space. But be very aware and be incredibly honest with yourself as to what you're motivated by in this process. And when you start to get that tingle of, oh, I like it that people are paying attention to what I say, or I really like it when people contact me and let me know that what I saw was right, or that I gave an accurate prediction. Like I say, there's nothing wrong with feeling like, oh, I did that. That feels good, Hey, I'm so glad I helped. But it can also start to feel like, oh, I know more. Aren't I somebody? Yes, you're somebody. We're all somebody. But never become the somebody that seems to stand above others with something more. Because as soon as you do that, the really interesting part about psychic development, and I mentioned it, I think in the second part, is that all of a sudden you start to slip. All of a sudden you're not getting your information very clear. When you start to have to face your own vices, your own deadly sins. We all have to face them no matter how good you walk your journey. You're still going to be encountering your need to face your own moral conflicts. No matter how good you are in your life, you will have to face moral self as you expand, as you grow. It just happens. Just learning it a different way than sometimes people who choose to walk a very dark road. They're still facing their moral conscience. But people who walk in the light and are these lovely, beautiful light beings are still having to face themselves. In there, you always have to do the homework. That's what we're here for. So be aware of it when you're walking into those places and know that there's lessons to learn there. Unconditionally love yourself within that space. What I will also say about telling people that they should or shouldn't do things. I have worked with psychics, unfortunately, who have told people terrible things. And I don't work with them anymore. They're on a wonderful list of people that I don't ethically trust and people that I would never send somebody to. These people sometimes get extremely involved in trying to fix, repair, and change other people's lives. Now, it is very difficult to sit with someone who's in an abusive relationship, just using that as an example, and you're watching them choose in their life to continue to be in this very painful thing, and it's important that you don't tell them that they should leave, they must leave, unless you're admitting that you are not speaking as a psychic. It's all right to say that it feels dangerous or unsafe, or that some patterns are looking like they're not going to change for a while, or that it's important to put themselves first, and to let those words sink into their own subconscious, to let the love, the light, and a place of, I unconditionally love you, here's what I see, but I can't tell you what to do or not to do. It's very important that we never, ever get stuck in the moral conflict of thinking that we can fix, repair, and save, or that they need us. It's up to me to make this decision for them. Oh my gosh, don't do it. Sometimes if you have to only practice while you're beginning with really small stuff, little benign pieces of information that really you're not emotionally attached to, you're not overly passionate about, you're just maybe going to try and predict what's going to be on the evening news a little bit, or you're going to work on your own dream analysis, or things like that. But I will say, if you are going to start to expand out working with other people with these skills and these gifts, that immediately it's you have to be very careful why you're doing it, what you're saying, and the information that you're leaving with somebody. It's very important that you're always creating a space that feels safe and emotionally strong, supporting, and even though there might be bumps along the way or tough stuff to talk about, it's very important that it's done from a place without fear, from a place of great love, from a place of unconditional acceptance and expansion. So be mindful, and it's all right when you are in those places, but don't lie to yourself if you catch yourself there. Please don't do that, because then again, you're going backwards. This is about learning you. Sometimes we got to find where part of our body or our soul body is not laying straight. It's not right, and we can work with that. We can work with that, and we can accept ourselves for what I'm supposed to be learning about that part of me. Don't sweep it away. Don't hide it. And whatever you do, don't feed the fire of it. Just be aware. Tune into you. Again, keep a journal, pay attention, write about your ethical conflicts or your moral stuff. Or I'm overly emotional about this topic, so I need to maybe not touch into this psychically. Tune into you. Love you enough to be extremely honest, because the more honest you are about yourself, the more honest you are about your own internal dialogue, the more you're going to open up psychically, and the quicker, the easier it's going to become. I'm just checking out my notes here thrills and chills. That's another one here I have. It's really kind of fun to thrill and chill people with information, to, shock them, the things that you might know or the stuff that you might be able to see. On the other hand, why are you doing that? What are you getting out of that? What's the intention for that? I'll admit the reason I'm laughing about it is because I've done it. I've been there when years ago, decades. I'm old now. I had to face myself. I recall doing a little bit of thrills and chills, trying to shake somebody. Oh, I know how it's going to turn out, or hey, be careful of this, ha ha ha, and then when it happens, have the person a little frightened or a little shaken up, or the wow factor, I'm sorry, I'm laughing, but it is kind of funny. I can look at it now and be like, oh, Wendy, oh, look what you were learning about you. But at the time, I got a big head, and I can admit that now. I can admit that now and even find it funny. But when it was happening, when I caught myself, I felt bad. And I had to look at, what was I getting out of that? I was going for a fast ride of something fun. I was feeding off of it from an ego place and a power place, and that's wrong ethically. On the other hand, sometimes we have to do it before we catch it. So again, to not judge yourself if you do catch yourself in any of these places. And another thing is very important is to not keep asking the same questions over and over and over again. If you don't like the answer of what you saw or what you ethically found, it's really important to not just keep barraging your psychic self with the same question 40 times a day, because your psychic self will know that you're doubting. Again, I don't mean to talk about it as a separate thing. It is a dialogue, though, within yourself. Is that if you're not trusting the initial message and you're not waiting a window of time, then you're doubting the entire process. And we go all the way back to the very first part of this series of, if you keep doubting what you're seeing, what you're feeling, even if you don't understand it, even if you don't like the answer, if you keep doubting it, then you're standing in your own way to your own psychic development. You got to go all the way back, like some kind of weird board game that you rolled the dice funny, and you got to go all the way back to the beginning, back to understanding that you have this, we all have this. Sometimes if you don't like the message, you still got to sit and bubble on it and meditate on it and think about it, because that's happening with great purpose to expand you and to go back to the beginning and start from step one again. You will jump in and out of different sections if you do choose to do things in this order and in this process. You'll have to refresh back and forth in and out of different sections of your own psychic development, back and forth, trying this one, going back to that one, reminding yourself of this. Oh yeah, I just had to face my ethics, my morals a little bit. I'm going to go back and journal that a little bit. I'm going to go back and really get back in touch with why I'm doing this. What is it that I'm trying to get out of developing myself psychically? And to really walk with yourself in this process. It's extremely important. Another thing is that you don't have to prove to anybody that this stuff is real. It's really important. Everybody has entitled to their own belief. If I'm sitting with someone and they're like, I don't believe in what you do. Well, good. I don't just follow any of this. Well, I don't think anybody should just follow anything. And I am certainly not in the business of trying to convince people to believe something or not believe something. And no, none of us should. We're not trying to convince. I'm not trying to tell the world that this stuff's real. This is real to me. This is my life experience. If you're tuned in and you're jazzed about it, maybe it's a part of your real experience as well. But if somebody's watching this and they're like, this is all a whole load of shit, well, I support their thought that this is a load of shit. And I don't feel threatened by that, and I don't need to argue with it, nor do I need to try and convince anybody differently. So be very mindful of that. That's an ethical trigger, that you sometimes feel like you need to convince people, no, this is real. What I'm doing is really, no, this is important. You should do it too. You should. You hear how you immediately slip right into you should? No, I'm doing it. It's theirs if they want to grab it using their sense of free will and pick it up and study these things. And if they do, well, I can send them to some really great resources while they expand. But I'm also not attached to trying to convince anybody else why to do this or that this is real. Thank you so much for tuning into the section about ethics. If anybody wants me to expand on any topics, please feel free to reach out. I love talking about psychic development. I'm going to continue after this series here of doing more stuff, but I really appreciate people tuning in. I own a business called Love Dragons. We're out there on the web. We're out there on Facebook. Love spelled with a U. Dragons.ca is the website. You can find me on Facebook. Please, thank you for tuning in. I wish you all the best of days. And pay attention to those ethics. Love yourself through whatever you find. Don't judge the who that you are. Just be okay with that. And the next section is going to be a hodgepodge of information. I've got one section that's really a whole hodgepodge of information, and that's what we're going to touch into in the next section. Thank you for tuning in.